I've been doing some buy low videos the last couple of weeks to start the season out, talking about some players who have been struggling out the gate, see if you can make an offer, maybe take advantage of some people's panic. You know what? Let's mix it up a little bit here. I think it's still too early to sell high on some players, and there's not really a whole lot left in terms of buying low that we haven't discussed. Let's look at some players that are off to, I guess we could say, surprising starts either way. And let's just decide, should you buy or sell? Are you in or out? Deal or no deal? And I think it's safe to say it's a surprise that we're going to have to talk about probably the best closer for fantasy purposes over the last 3 seasons combined. Emmanuel Class has led the majors in saves 2 of the past 3 seasons, almost did it last year. Now people are just full-blown panic, just saying like, that's it, he's done, he's toast. No, seriously, I've heard many people say that after last postseason and the way this season has started, it's time to jump ship. And sure, if you look at the numbers, I mean, only one save over the first 2 weeks. So then we should go back to, well, it's only been 2 weeks. Look, every closer has these moments where they'll have a blown save or two. The ratios are inflated because of the small sample, right? But the haters will say, let's go back and last postseason, the last time we saw him, he was doing the same thing. And yeah, against the Tigers, he did blow it, giving up 3 runs in 1 inning. And then against the Yankees, back-to-back bad outings where he gave up 2 runs. Altogether, 8 runs allowed in 8 innings in the postseason. So that leads to the obvious question, is this time to just get out from under him? You know what? Maybe something's gone on here with Klaus that we just don't know about. The time to get out while the getting's good? Or is this a buy low opportunity because of the small sample and people are overreacting? As always, we got to dig a little bit deeper. Let's look at the analytics here. Has he lost something? No, he hasn't. I mean, if you want to get really technical, he has lost half a tick on the fastball, so it's down to only 98.9 miles per hour. His ERA and whip are horrendous, but again, it's been 2 weeks. And you know what he's not doing? Is walking batters, because he never does, and he still hasn't this year, and even in that last postseason that I already mentioned, that wasn't the issue. He's got a 2.7% walk rate now, an 8-to-1 K to walk ratio in those 8 innings last year. His strikeout rate is down a little bit this year, but not very much. Again, this is such a small sample. Look, altogether, we're talking about a total of 15 innings and a couple of bad outings. And let me remind you, postseason is different from regular season. Yeah, he went against the Yankees, went to the World Series, the Tigers. He didn't look good. He wasn't up to the moment. But who cares now? It's 2025. It's the regular season. It's fantasy. Is this a reason to be out on the best closer in the game? Look, I was actually temporarily worried, maybe not out on Klaus, because I was worried about a couple of years ago when the pitch clock came into effect. He was one of those pitchers who was the most affected by it. And I thought that might be an adjustment issue for him. It wasn't. I was wrong. There's nothing wrong with Klaus. As I mentioned, his walk rate is still minuscule. His chase rate is still super high. He's not dealing with injury. He hasn't lost anything. There's no reason to be worried. So if someone's panicked, take advantage. Get him now. This for me is a huge buying opportunity. I mean, this is not somebody who came out of nowhere last year to get a bunch of saves. You know, if it was Ryan Helsley doing the same thing, you might have a little bit of pause, but come on, how many more years of consistency do we need to see before a guy like Emmanuel Claus just gets the benefit of the doubt? Now, that was the most highly drafted, most prominent name on this list, but let's get to some, I guess you could call Johnny-come-latelys, some players with some surprising starts to the season, or a Young-ho Lee come lately. Young-ho Lee is all the rave in San Francisco and in the fantasy world, starting to be picked up everywhere, and rightfully so. And he's somebody I did just talk about, of course, on the waiver wire video as a guy you should be picking up. And we've discussed him a lot on the live streams. When it comes down to it, what are we doing? If you've got him or if you didn't and you want him, should you go out and try to buy him now before he really fully breaks out? Or should you sell him if you were lucky enough to pick him up? For those who are not yet hooligans, well, let me fill you in quickly on what he's done so far this season. Even after an 0 for 5 night where he struck out 3 times, he's got 3 home runs, he's got 3 stolen bases. He's pretty much doing it all. And entering Tuesday night's action, his 16 runs scored were fifth, tied for fifth in the majors. I mean, this is a huge boost in that category. Now, obviously, if he's somehow still out there, which he shouldn't be in your league, you pick him up. But the question is, do you try to flip him and sell high? Well, let's actually go down the line here and I'll kind of explain my thinking before I give you my verdict. Let's just start with the typical roto categories. Okay, batting average, check. I mean, obviously, hitting well over 300. Do I feel like that could carry on throughout the rest of the season? I don't think he's necessarily going to hit 320, 330 something. I don't expect that. But if you told me right now he could finish top 10 in the National League in batting average, maybe among the leaders, I would believe you. So for me, that category, check. The runs scored, definitely. Not just because he scored so many already, but saying that he, even though he wasn't batting leadoff to start the season, hitting third is just as good for his run scoring opportunities, gives him a little bit more also in terms of RBI opportunities. If he's getting on base, he's going to score runs. He's speedy enough to do it. So runs, definitely feel confident. Check there. Now the power, not so much. I've already said a couple home runs here already is nice. Don't expect it to continue. This is not a power hitter, even in the KBO, which is typically a little bit more offensive friendly, for hitters. It's not something that he ever really did. His career high mark was 23 home runs over the season a couple years ago when he was 23. And let's keep in mind the fact that he's playing most of his games in one of the worst offensive ballparks for a power hitter. And that's one of the reasons I was really down on Willie Adames heading into this season compared to last season. I do not see Lee probably even getting the 20 home runs. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. So home runs, not so much. RBIs, it'll be fine. I don't expect him to be a big contributor in that category, but I guess for what he does and where he plays, it's okay. Steals, again, he's got speed, but he's not necessarily a big stolen base threat. So I think 15 to 20 steals is pretty reasonable to expect. So by my tally, strong check in two categories, not so much in the two power categories, and then the steals, maybe not giving you a huge boost, but it's good enough. They'll push him over the edge. So I say buy if you can buy low, and by low meaning you're not giving up a player that is an everyday outfielder, one or two. Do not think that this guy is going to break out and have this huge monster season. All right, he will be a very solid contributor. I think it's surprising that nobody drafted him more, that he had to be picked up so much in the first couple of weeks of the season. So I don't mind buying him if it's appropriately priced. Does the same go for Wilyer Abreu of the Red Sox? He had one of the best first weekends of anybody, had a couple home runs in his first couple of games, and then has been a little quiet in terms of the power department. But overall, if you look, and a lot of people do this is why I like to run down the list this way. You look at the league leaders, or at least the fantasy leaders in terms of ranks, and he's up there because he's giving you a little bit of everything. 3 homers, 2 steals, 12 RBIs. Again, you're like, he's helping me in every category. This guy, again, could be a stud in roto leagues. You buy into him as a guy who can help carry your team, or are you selling him now? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing, and you should already know this because I've said this before. I'm out. Sure, Abreu does have some power, but it's not massive. I don't see him continuing this. I mean, he happened to have a multi-homer game very early, just like Young Hoo Lee just did, but that doesn't mean he's going to continue it. The batting average looks great, but again, not just small sample, but this is really not something that we should expect from him. Look, even across the minor leagues, his best season that he finished in the minors in terms of batting average was 286. That was in rookie ball when he was 18 years old. After that, he hit 274 one year when he was at AAA. Steals, definitely not counting on that. He did happen to steal 31 bases at one point in a double A season, but other than that kind of fluky outlier, it seems like he hasn't stolen more than 11. I know he didn't play every game last season because of some injuries, but he only stole 8 last time. Look, Abreu is somebody who's off to a nice start. He'll be a nice player. But man, if anybody expects a 5 category stud, I am taking what I can get from him. Yeah, I think he's definitely a sell. Okay, so what about Trevor Story? Also in Boston, off to a nice start. He's helping you a little bit across every category as well. And I think you should already know the answer to this if you watch my preseason videos. But let's dive into it a little bit first. He's got 6 steals already, a couple home runs. He's helping you with RBIs, runs scored, all of that. And this is despite the fact that Boston has been pretty cold to start the season. Don't need to remind you the horrible start that Rafael Devers got off to. Tristan Casas we're still waiting for. Connor Wong is hurt, etc. But we haven't seen Trevor Story be fantasy relevant for I don't even know how long. Well, basically since he got to Boston, right? Is this a time to take advantage of this window to sell him for something if possible? No, sir. If you have Trevor Story, you hold. You resist the temptation to sell. There is a possibility he gets hurt again. I cannot rule that out. Now, that's very possible for any player, but of course, we know the history here. But that's the whole point, and this is why I went so far as to include Story in my League Winners video. That's right, you can go back and check the tape. I put him as a potential league winner because he was barely being drafted anywhere and was obviously undrafted in a lot of leagues, which is why he's not being picked up everywhere, because he's always had the ability. That's never been the question. It's just the guy cannot stay healthy ever since he got to Boston. It wasn't a matter of, oh, he could only hit in Coors Field, can't do it in Fenway. It's not it. It's just injury problems. But heading into this offseason, it seemed like he was good to go. You know, he improved his workout regimen, all that. Okay, whatever. That happens all the time. But it seems to be working. And so as long as he's playing, he's going to steal bases. He's got the power. He can hit. He can do it all and actually help you in all 5 categories as long as he's healthy. 53.2% hard hit rate. It's in the 86th percentile. Hitting the ball hard and definitely getting the green light to steal. What more could you ask for? So if you got Story, don't sell. And if someone else wants to flip him and not ask for a whole lot in return, take him on. Back to pitching now. This is also sort of a spoiler if you've already seen my preseason draft videos, but let's talk Shane Baz. Now, Shane Baz just had another dominant start. That means after 3 outings, he's 2-0 with 142 ERA, 0.84 whip, and 27 Ks in 19 innings. Is this just like the pitcher version of Trevor Story? Dominant as long as he stays healthy? Pretty much. Look at this guy's only 25 years old. Of course, with a pitcher, there's a lot more at risk, right? A lot more reason to worry, a lot more trepidation of a pitcher coming off not just a lost year, but a year and a half in Baz's case. Despite mixed results, okay, he was kind of bad in spring training, it didn't matter, right? All that we cared about was that his arm was good. He's ready to go out there and start every 5th, 6th day. He's doing it, and man, he's been even better than ever. The 38% strikeout rate may not sustain itself, but it's okay. I'll take a little regression there. I mean, come on, this is clearly a buy. Now you might think, is this a buy high? Sure, but if someone's selling, they think they're selling a high, I will take him. Now, I am not necessarily going to give up another frontline ace type, but at the same time, that wouldn't even make sense to swap. So look, my point is, if you have Baz, do not sell. If someone is going to offer Baz at a reasonable cost, I'm taking him. All right, then a pair of sluggers I want to compare, and this is going to get interesting, so bear with me. All right, so again, for the 2nd year in a row, we're going to talk about Matt Olson having a horrible start. What do we do with him? Now, someone who looks at the StatCast and Baseball Savant every single day and digs into these players before I talk about them, I think it's really interesting how these stats could be misinterpreted. So let's look at Olson. Right now, his barrel rate, his hard hit rate, and his exit velocity, his average EV, are all what would be the best marks of his entire career. They are super high. In fact, you just look at his whole StatCast page, it's a sea of red. You're like, this guy should be killing it, and yet he's not. So this seems like a very obvious buy low candidate. We know what Olson can do, right? Maybe last year was his down year, and he's going to bounce back to maybe 40, 50 home runs even. And yet, I don't think so. These numbers are a little misleading because, yeah, he is scorching the ball, hitting it very hard into the ground. His launch angle is all the way down to 5.1 degrees, down from where it should be the last several years, about 16, right? We want it somewhere between 12 to 16. We talk about that sweet spot. He's nowhere close to the sweet spot. You ever heard of worm burners? Yeah, he's the king of them so far this year. A 58% ground ball rate is not what you want to see from any major league hitter, much less a slugger who's supposed to be hitting home runs. He's only got an 8.9% pull air rate. That means fly balls, line drives, anything that goes up in the air that he's yanking to the other side. Again, what you want from a guy who's supposed to be hitting home runs or maybe doubles, he's just not doing that. Obviously, this should be a course correction over the long term, but then at that same point, you're going to see the expected numbers shift They'll meet in the middle at some point, but what you're going to see, I think, is basically what you saw last year. We're not getting 54 homer version of Matt Olson back. That was his prime age, his career year for sure. I said it all last year. I don't see this coming back. I was out on Olsen during draft season. I wasn't buying into him as a buy low at any point last season. I'm not doing it again this year. Now, at this point, if you are selling Olsen or looking to, you would be selling pretty low. But just wait, he'll have a moment, maybe a solid week, a game where he hits a homer or two, and people will think, here he comes, he's coming back. Man, I would take that opportunity to flip him fast. And if we're talking about Olsen, I feel like then we also have to talk about Cody Bellinger, first base slash outfielder, who's very similar. Now, Bellinger can get you some steals, which Olsen can't. But at the same time, Bellinger can totally drive your batting average down to the ground, which he has done before as well. This one is a little tricky because Bellinger right now is dealing with some back tightness, which is why he's been out of the lineup a couple of days. And maybe that explains what we've seen so far. What we saw, really the first week of the season from him and all the Yankees was amazing. After that first series with the Brewers, he already had a homer, 6 RBIs. And then following that, he stole a base, had his batting average over 300. But again, that was after like 5 games. And now, still just that 1 home run. And this is, well, exactly what he deserves because his XBA is 193. And he's at what would be a career worst 29.6% strikeout rate. So the numbers tell me that after that one weekend where they just demolished the Brewers with those torpedo bats, he has crashed hard. So what's my advice here? I'm buying. I know it's weird, but here, follow me. Bellinger is going to be fine if his back allows him to be out there swinging freely. Obviously, health is always a tricky issue here, but look, if this resolves itself, he doesn't require an IL stint, he seems to get back to his usual ways. I'm buying back into it because I was in on him anyways this season. He's in a great spot. He will get you the power, the speed, all the counting stats that you want. I think the batting average will be fine too. He was looking good until the back stiffened up on him. So I think this could present a major buying opportunity. But again, you're going to have to monitor to make sure that there isn't anything else going on there that's going to keep him sidelined. And you know what? Before we go out, let me throw in another quickie here. I think I want to mention Blake Snell because a lot of people are basically throwing their hands up like, here we go again. I kind of joked with that with Aaron Nola, the whole thing after his first couple of bad starts. And like, oh, this is just what he does. What does Blake Snell do? He looks even worse. He looks like he doesn't belong on the mound for the first month or two of the season, and then he somehow wins a Cy Young. Other thing he does is he tends to get hurt, just like last year. And so here we go. He is sidelined because of shoulder inflammation, sounding like he might be out until mid-May. And so I'm going to say about Snell the same thing that I convinced myself to do last year is I'm going to buy because we know that by the time it's June, July, he's all of a sudden going to look like his best self. I mean, obviously, with a shoulder issue, things could take a turn for the worse. But if you're able to stash him, and again, I'm buying on the cheap, and somebody who's looking at being without a pitcher like him for another month and maybe is just already distraught, you know what? It's okay to take advantage of their distress, but never hesitate to make a trade where you feel like you truly are getting the better end of the deal. Send out offers, and if someone rejects it, it doesn't mean you give up. You keep trying. You always want to stay on top of the game. That's why I'm giving you some buy sell advice and also talking about players to stash, especially some of these prospects that could help you later on. Grab them now. Don't wait. So, latest Beat the Breakout is already up. Check it out if you haven't already.